and you get kicked out of this big CEO position. You're
Mhm.
going to feel a little bit of loss because it's not necessarily that you're going to feel the grief of it. You're going to feel the betrayal. You're going to
Mm.
feel the shame, the guilt. Like you could have done something more. You should have done this. Oh my gosh, what are my friends and family going to think? So all these emotions start coming into play when you have like grief, and like even with the loss of a loved one. Like there's a huge stigma on all of these things, which I don't feel there needs to be.
Situated. How have you been,
Oh
babe?
my gosh, I've been doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. I love your earrings. You look so fabulous.
Well, thank you.
I see you everywhere. I know. Yes, and you've been just like I love, you're always cheering people on and celebrating others, which is something that I'm so huge on. But you've definitely made a shift since we last talked. And I
A
just
long time ago.
yeah, it was such a long time ago, but because we had been on a couple of calls, every time you're always bring this energy of calm, but also like you're not the person to like jump on the yes wagon. If I bring something up that a lot of people are doing, you are the first to say, "Oh no, I don't feel that way. That's not for me. That's not what I do." And I love that. To me, it's like it's super refreshing. So I would love to start off with you just sharing where this journey has taken you and how you remained resilient, but also just so positive in all of it. You're able to see a really awesome light through everything that you've been through. And you use that as a purpose to help others and to share a way to get past grief. But I want to share it in your words.
Sure, sure. Wow. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me onto this podcast. I absolutely adore you. You look fabulous. I've been watching your content as you were on a hiatus, I know that. And
Yeah.
now that you've come back, I'm like, "Oh, go Nan. Go
See,
Nan."
yeah, see, that's that
I'm
energy
like,
that
"Get
I'm
it."
talking about.
The journey that I've been on. So I used to do funnels, and that's where I met Nin, was in a private group that we were in. And I did sales funnels and I helped people like make money online with their products and services and whatnot. Then I decided to switch it up. In 2016, we lost our 19-year-old daughter in a freak vehicle accident. And it literally shattered our world, as I'm sure anyone can imagine. And at that time, I wanted to go into grief. I wanted to help people with grief, but it didn't feel like I had the qualifications to do it, which sounds very odd, because I'm going through this experience, living it firsthand. She was my stepdaughter, and therefore I put myself in a backseat role and thought, oh, I can't talk about this because she was quote unquote just my stepdaughter.
Mm.
But lo and behold, like I had put like a ton of energy and time and love and all of the things, same things that I did with my other children into these new children when I married my husband. And so this was a mindset belief that I had to get over, but I didn't at that time. I just keep building the funnels and doing the sales stuff and all that. And then 2021 rolled around and we lost our 4-year-old granddaughter. And I'm like, I have skills and abilities to help people navigate this journey in their life, to navigate this extreme sadness, this grief that they're in. And so I immediately switched. Like, there was no, let me just ease into, I'm not the type to ease into anything. I'm like, okay, here we go. Boom. Let's hit the ground running because it's grief. It's one of those, it's a bitch. I'm sorry. I can't put it any
No,
blunter.
yeah. I hear you. And it's hard for a lot of people to just jump from one thing to another and fully embrace it. And if I know anyone who can do that, it's you. You do it so well and so gracefully and you give it your all. With everything that you've done, you've given it your all. But when I did know you and you were doing funnels, you were super successful at it, but you could
Was.
tell that there was not really a light that ignited what you were doing.
No.
There wasn't so much joy in it. We go into business finding the thing that we're good at that can make us money, not necessarily brings us joy or ignites us and lights us up. And so when we see success, especially financial success, because it's tangible, it's easy to see the numbers, we think we're going in the right path, in the right direction because we're growing financially, which is great. But if it's killing us with overwhelm, if it's deflating our energy, if it doesn't bring us joy, what is it all for? The path that you're taking on now, I imagine is very similar to mine in that as we jump into something new, it seems like it is a little slower pace because you're building things up, but also you very much question yourself and saying, why would anyone believe that this is what I can do well? Why would anyone want to learn this from me? And all of these things that that shut us down because we're just afraid or we haven't done it before and we're so new to it. But now that you've been doing it for a while, tell me what that journey is like and how it's really empowered you to continue to show up for yourself, that you are just so lit up all the time. You always bring this positive energy. No one would ever guess that you've been through the things that you've been through just because you are so eager to cheer people on.
But to answer that question, how do I stay so happy, so positive, so uplifting? It's a choice. Literally, it is a choice that I make because you can be doom and gloom all the time, or you can be happy and uplifting. And I choose to be happy and uplifting because I don't want to take on the identity of my daughter and my granddaughter's death and let that become my sole purpose in life. Like, oh, she only talks about death and grief, which I do, but I want it to be a happy and uplifting experience because we're not getting off this planet alive. We don't. Like, death is going to happen to all of us at some point in time or another. And as soon as we embrace it and we bring it into our own and we use it for ourselves, like to push ourselves forward. So it's like, okay, I'm going to die. What am I going to do about that? What am I going to leave for my family that is going to let them know that, one, I love them, two, that I cherished them, three, that I love them even more. Like, and it all comes down to love for me. When I started funnels, it was to chase money because I had a broke mindset. I was young. I came up very poor. I wanted to make sure that I was doing something for myself to make my father and my mother proud of me.
Mm,
Now, are they proud of me? Of course they're proud of me, even if I'm broke. They don't
yeah.
care. But when I lost my daughter, that's when my mindset shifted and my heart set shifted into I no longer chase money. I chase happiness. I chase joy. I chase fulfillment. And I chase helping others achieve the same results. Because it's not a competition to see who can get through grief the fastest
Oh
or who
no.
can get the best or who has the most perfect lifestyle when you're going through grief. Because grief is messy, it's ugly, it's a lot of muddy areas, that you get into. But when you express those emotions, when you talk about the things that bring you down and make you sad, and honestly, I've been meditating on this for a while. When you think of the word grief, you instantly think of doom, gloom, and sadness. But what if when you lose someone, it's not a term coined that's called grief? But what if you're just in a deep sadness, which is the same thing, right?
Hmm.
But as you know, words mean different things and they have different texts and connotations and stuff within our mind.
Very different
What
way.
if we reframe grief as to like, I'm in a deep sadness? But with that sadness, I can move through it and move to a different place. Because if you're in grief, you're always in grief,
Hmm.
right? And so that means you're always down, doom, gloom all the time. But if I'm in a deep sadness, I can move through it and come to a deep happiness as well. Even though I've sustained this horrible, tragic accident or a thing in my life or loss or whatever it is, I can still move to happiness, which is where we should all want to go. I mean, if you choose to. No,
Right.
that's a choice.
It is. Yeah. So just like how you began with, you choose happiness each day. You choose how you want to feel. Do you also agree, though, that feeling that deep sadness can be in the same space.
I think that when it first happens, so like when the loss, especially if it's a very close loss, I think you go into this intense darkness, and I call it the nothingness. And the
Mm,
nothingness lasts for, certain amount of time, certain amount of days, months, years, whatever for each individual until they choose to move to a different thing, a
mhm,
different emotion, a different feeling, a different state of being.
mhm,
And when they choose to move to a different state of being, that could be the anger, that could be depression, that could be happiness, that could be, the acceptance portion of it. But I think that as you're moving through it, you have to choose to let it go or continue it. And that's a choice that we all make. And man, once I realized that I have the power to choose my emotions each day is game on, baby. Game on. Because I'm the one that's in control. And I feel that I'm the one that's in control of my emotions and my being rather than letting my day and my circumstances define me and control me and whip me back and forth and put me on this roller coaster ride that I don't want to go on.
I know that you have children. How do you impress that upon them? You get to wake up every morning and make a choice, but not just wake up in the morning. Every single moment you
Yeah.
get to make a choice. So how do you help them and to remind them this moment doesn't have to take over the day. It doesn't have to ruin the day.
I talk to them. I hear what they're saying and I impress it back upon them. I'm like, okay, if this is your stance, then that's okay. Like if that's your choice is to be angry and upset and mad and pissed at the world, that's your choice. But understand you were the one choosing this emotion. No one else is forcing it on you because no one can force it on you.
No, I think that's actually a nice way to approach it too, to empower them and remind them, hey, this is your choice. It's okay if you want to sit here, and if it does make you feel better for now, to sit here and just cry about it for a little bit. All right, let's do that.
That's
But
okay.
yeah, it's totally okay. But whenever you're ready, you also get to make the choice to get up and let's fix this. We can work together to make this
Yeah,
happen. And that we're
absolutely.
here to support you, but to empower them that they get to choose in each moment to
Mhm.
just sit there for a little bit or to move on. I love too that we are there to support them to say, if you would like my help in this, I'm here for you. When it comes to grief, I imagine you've experienced the gamut of different varieties. Seeing somebody else grieve over a loss of a loved one, or seeing someone grieve over the loss of a job or the loss of their home, let's say in a fire. Those are different kinds of grievances. So is there a a way to categorize those things? Does it matter or is it all experienced the same? Do we appreciate it the same? How should we approach that?
I think that in today's society, people have put a stigma on like, okay, grief is you losing someone or a pet or whatever. But
Mhm,
it's also impressed upon us that, okay, a month has passed, get back to work, don your put your mask on. I don't want to know about anything else that's happening in your world, but get your ass back to work. Let's
mhm,
go. That's it.
yeah.
And then it's like 6 years down the road or whatever. And it's like, well, why are you still sad? Why are you still grieving? Why are you still talking about your child? Why is this still an issue? And it's, the same thing. It's like, well, why are you still talking about your kids? They're
Uh,
still alive. I mean, I can talk about mine, can I not?
yeah.
Or my house, or my job, or whatever. It's like, why are you still talking about it if you don't want me to talk about mine? And so it's just, I mean, of course, there's different levels because it's the emotional attachment that you have with the person thing. And then when that thing or person is gone, that's when the grief really happens. And it's the intensity with which it happens. So if you had a job and you got let go from your job, but you didn't really like your job, you're not going to grieve that much,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
But if you worked your way up to be president of a big major corporation, you worked your butt off, and all of a sudden someone comes in and they're lying about you, and you get kicked out of this big CEO position. You're
Mhm,
going to feel a little bit of loss because it's not necessarily that you're going to feel the grief of it. You're going to feel the betrayal. You're going to
mm,
feel the shame, the guilt. Like you could have done something more. You should have done this. Oh my gosh, what are my friends and family going to think? So all these emotions start coming into play when you have like grief and like even with the loss of a loved one. Like there's a huge stigma on all of these things, which I don't feel there needs to be.
Yeah, that actually, you bring up a really good point because a lot of times, whenever we share something that we've been through that people know there should be grief around and should be understanding around, it's hard for people to share how they feel or to say really anything. What is the right approach, in your opinion, to communicate and offer condolences to somebody who's going through something? Is it best to just say, "I'm here for you," or what is the best approach?
I think it depends upon the person. So the person that's going through it, because I know for me, initially when I found out about the loss of my daughter and my granddaughter, like you just go to this place. Like it's so hard to describe to people that have not experienced it. But you go to this place where it doesn't matter if there's anyone standing in front of you or not. This is the nothingness. Like nothing matters at that point. Nothing that they say, nothing that they do. And a lot of times you might not even remember people that were there or things that were done because you're in a state of intense shock, intense grief, intense sadness. And so I don't remember everyone that came to our house. I don't remember everyone that showed up. And we had tons of people because I have a huge family and my husband has a huge family. And her mother has a huge family and her stepfather has a huge family, you know? So we have these huge four families coming together and there were hundreds of people there. You go through the motions. It's almost like going through the motions. It's like, okay, now we're planning the funeral. Now we're at the funeral. You're not really remembering who and what is in front of you. You're just going through and living in the past at that moment because you're like, I miss my child. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I can't believe this is real. I just call it the nothingness because nothing exists and nothing matters.
So then during that time, I love that you approach that in that way, that it is different for each
Mhm.
person. So it's just a matter of how you know them and what you know that their needs are.
Yeah.
So
When you're in a stage of grief, and whether you realize you're in it or not, so I have a quick story here.
yeah,
Just because I delve in the grief world doesn't mean I know everything there is to know about grief. I'm still learning as you are, like as everyone is. The biggest thing that you can do is learn about yourself.
mm,
Understand yourself because when you understand yourself, you know how you react. You can find your triggers. And when you know these things, you can change these things. But if you don't know these things, you can't change anything. And so, my quick story is about that. I talked about that I lost our daughter in 2016. She was 19 years old, beautiful, had a full life ahead of her, had just moved away from our local area, about an hour and a half away, 2 hours away, in with her best friend and just beginning her life. Right. And then fast forward to 2021, was it 2022? And we lost our granddaughter, our 4-year-old granddaughter in a freak accident, right? Beautiful. Like she was just beginning her world. She was so excited to start kindergarten that next year. And we lost her. And at that time, I started going into a shell. Started pulling back from everything. Like I wasn't leaving the house for like weeks at a time. Like I would send people to the store for me to grab whatever we needed for groceries. I would find a way to not have to leave the house. It was making me nervous. It was making me uncomfortable. I couldn't leave my phone. I had to have my phone. I had to sleep with my phone because I was afraid that I was going to miss a phone call because you don't get any good bad news, in person. It's always through a damn phone call. And I was afraid to leave my phone. And I realized I was shutting down. And so I decided to join a pageant. That's when I joined my pageant system.
I've
So
read
you
that.
you can read my timeline because I post it all online. So I joined a pageant to get me out of my comfort zone, to get me out of this fear, to get me into doing things again, to recognizing this stuff. Meanwhile, I'm telling you all of this because in my private Facebook group, which is free, anyone can join. I did a live and I was talking about coping mechanisms. And a lady had commented on the post about coping mechanisms. And she said, I don't know if this is a coping mechanism, but I still am in the stage of the shoulda, coulda, woulda. And what that means is I should have done more. I could have done more. I would have done more to save my child, to save my loved one. I want to have thoroughly researched answers to come back and give them some sort of answer that not that they're looking for, but that is relevant to what is happening. Like, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, but I will tell you to help you move forward through your grief. And so I'm researching it. I'm like, is this a coping mechanism? Like, I don't think it is, but let me double check and make sure. So I'm looking it up. Sure enough, it's not a coping mechanism. But what it is PTSD. I didn't realize I had PTSD from losing my children and my grandchild, losing my child and my grandchild. I didn't realize that this was acute PTSD because of those instances. This is what I was doing. PTSD was making me pull back, and I couldn't leave my phone because I was afraid of missing a phone call that I had lost another family member. I was afraid of doing all of those things. And this just happened like 2 weeks ago. So I am learning like the same things. And so my daughter, she's like, Mom, you didn't know that? And she's like, Mom, you didn't know you had PTSD? I'm like, no. My husband was in the military for 24 years and we had dealt extensively with PTSD with soldiers. And that was where it was for me. PTSD only happened with soldiers. That was it. Talk about a wake-up call that day. So as you learn things, you get to implement things. And now I realize, and now I can go back and I can pinpoint every time that PTSD was rearing its head and the steps that I took to move through it. And the step that I took to move through the PTSD that I was experiencing, when I lost my granddaughter, because I felt it with my daughter and then I felt it with my granddaughter, but it was worse with my granddaughter because now I'm at 2.0. I'm in the second version. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is becoming a pattern. Whoa. My recourse out of it was joining the pageant. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing, but that's what I was helping my PTSD with because I recognized that I was moving outside of my own patterns, which I'm a very outgoing person. I love to go do things. So
Uh,
it's just understanding yourself.
It is, but also too, you shared that experience. That's how you learn
Yeah.
somebody else, right? If you would have just kept to yourself and continued to hold on to your phone, but also not share the story of this is what I was doing, you wouldn't have learned that. And so
Mm.
that's why it's so important to, once you're in a space to fully share and you've healed, to share that story, to allow others to know they're not alone, but also for you to learn new things.
Yes.
Well, people want to connect with others, they want to share experiences, and they want to learn too. So, thank you for sharing that story and
Absolutely.
also being honest about we're always evolving and always growing and that you don't have all the answers. If
But
any,
that's what we think. We think that someone's up there, they should know
yeah.
everything there is to know about this subject. But no one can ever know everything there is to know about any subject.
Yeah, and all of the nuances within all of it. For those of us just starting out, we don't ever have to have all of the answers. Just because I don't know everything there is to know about podcasting or everything there is to know about marketing doesn't mean I can't help people when I know that there is a solution that I can help them with. If there is a question that they have, because with anything that we do, we have a million questions. If I can answer one or two questions, that's my contribution. That's what I can do. And most of the time, people are grateful when you just offer that help when you can, when they're asking for it. Do you have tools or resources that you share for people who are going through these experiences who might not be able to work with you one on one or in a group setting? Where do you normally send them to?
I do. I have a Facebook group that is all about grief. I have a podcast that is all about grief. The podcast is not necessarily just the thought of losing someone. That's not the only grief we talk about. We talk about there's been people on there that have lost a way of life. One woman has went to the eye doctor in between classes at college and work and found out that her eyes were swimming in spinal fluid. And she was like 23 years old and she completely lost the life that she knew. And she's, wheelchair. And we talk about that grief because that's something that's not really talked about. And other people like just severe illnesses. We've had murders on there, unsolved murders, so they didn't get that closure. And so it's not necessarily just about the death of someone, but like the death of animals, the death of a previous
A
lifestyle
big
that you went
change.
through.
A
Yes,
big
the
change.
major change within your life.
That really helps to put it into perspective too, because I can imagine people feeling like, why are you so defeated about this? Why do you feel so terrible? There are people who have experienced worse things, but the reality is for all of us as humans, whenever we experience a big, deep change, we're going to go through those emotions. We're going to
Yes.
go through those feelings. And when we have a community who can support us, if we have people to lift us up, to help us to get back to who we are, that's really powerful. So, with the work that you do you find that you gravitate towards people and you can feel that they're going through those experiences? Or do they normally come to you and say, I love the work that you're doing. I've seen you out there sharing your story. What does that look like for you? Just being visible and sharing your story, because I know it's not easy.
No, it's definitely not easy. Let me put it this way. It's not easy if you're worried about the judgment of others. It's
Mm,
easy if you aren't worried about the judgment of others because you just don't care, because you know that the message that you're putting out there is going to resonate with the people that need it. Blast it out there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't absolutely doesn't have to be perfect because heaven help me, I know I'm not. Nor is my message. I mess up quite a bit, but I'm always of the mindset that let this reach the person that it needs to reach when it needs to reach them.
I love it. So then you're attracting your people and you
I'm
put out
attracting my
there.
people. I find
And
it also that with me doing this podcast and me putting my stuff out there, so grief is kind of like a weird little animal. When I post my messages, like, I come from the freaking funnel building world, right?
yeah.
So we look at the numbers. Oh my gosh, how many likes, how many hearts are coming in, right?
Yeah.
How many
The
shares, blah,
data.
blah, 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 right? So I've noticed in the grief world, that doesn't happen
Mm.
because it's so personal to them and they don't want anyone else to know that they're grieving. So they are lurkers and and I've had people like when I meet them in person, even like my family at family gatherings, I meet them and they're like, I loved your episode. Like that was amazing. Or they'll send me private messages and they'll say, thank you so much for putting this out there. But they don't want to comment publicly on them because they don't want everyone to know. So this is kind of a different realm for me.
That's so interesting. Yeah, actually, I didn't even consider that, Faith, because that's something where it's so internal and
Yeah.
it's such a private moment for a lot of people. Unlike you who are reaching out to people to help them with it, which you need to be visible, but for people who are experiencing these deep feelings and these experiences, they don't want for the world to know, and they
Right.
want to be able to heal. First of all, it's really important to heal and before you start to even share, because it could really unravel a ton of different things for you if you're not ready to put it into the world and
Right.
you hear the input or responses from people who just aren't equipped with the right tools to help you and support you through your grief. So that's actually really interesting, because you're right. When it comes to marketing and visibility and being in business, you think all of those numbers, the reactions, the comments, that's what
Yeah.
shows that someone is really successful or doing a great job. But
Yeah.
in a place like where you are, it's really the internal, everything that you get behind the scenes, that you hear, with the way that people connect with you. And in a lot of ways, that's so much more meaningful. I imagine that's the field that you use to continue to do your work.
It is because when obviously when anyone first starts out, people are like, I don't know, let's give her a shot. I'm not gonna comment on anything, but I'm gonna read the posts, right? I'm gonna read them. It doesn't matter if you're in e-com, it doesn't matter if you're in business, a coaching, consulting, or grief. It doesn't matter. They're just gonna read the stuff and keep going, right? On
Mhm.
all of it. So the first, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months, you think it's just you. But then as time moves on, and you think, gosh, why am I doing this? Why am I doing I'm getting nothing back. No one is responding. And this is for all areas of business. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter e-com, coaches, consulting, or grief in the grief space. But then all of a sudden, this weird shift happens. They like it. They won't comment, but they might like it.
Yeah.
Or they'll reach out to you on the backside. Or like I mentioned before, I'll go to a family gathering and I'll have a couple different family members
Oh.
come up to me and tell me how thankful they are. They've seen my stuff. They noticed it and they bring it up to me. And so I'm like, okay, so people are seeing this stuff. They are resonating with it, but they're not commenting, they're not liking, and they're not sharing. It was kind of eye-opening in the grief space because they're consuming the content, They're reading the posts and they're internalizing the stuff, but they're not saying anything. At least online. They're
Right,
saying it
right.
privately. Yeah.
Well, it really goes to show though how powerful it is not only for you to continue and be consistent with what you know is in alignment for you, also for people to reach out. It means a lot and it goes a long way to share with this person to let them know, I appreciate what you're doing. Even just simple like Faith said, just a little reaction to push them in the right direction, to encourage me to keep going or to inspire Faith to keep going. That's how this all works, allowing grief to be a part of your life and still be able to live fully and freely and be yourself. Faith, you have a book.
I have several books now.
I did not know that you had
So
several
here
books.
was my first one. So
Yes.
when I was making the transition, I'm going to go back a little bit. So when I was making the transition from sales funnels, we had just lost our granddaughter and I had just hired on this expensive ass coach to help me build my sales funnel stuff out.
Yeah.
But then I'd lost my granddaughter and I'm like, no, 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 I need to retract all that. I want to go towards the grief space. I have knowledge to help people. He's like, okay, that's great. Let's move forward. And so he said, first thing you got to do is write that book. So I wrote my book. I wrote it in 30 days, had it written and published in 30 days. And let me tell you, it was not easy, but it can be done as long as you're committed to making it happen. And let me tell you, writing that book was one of the best ways to express those emotions and get that stuff out, all that gunk, because you have to clear out the gunk. One of the guys I interviewed said it best. He goes, you have to clear out that old gunk to make way for new things to come into your life. It's just like cleaning out a closet, you
Yeah.
know, purging yourself. And when you release those emotions, whether it's through crying or like even anger, and I have a phrase that I've coined, it's called rage responsibly. You have to release these emotions and get them out of the way so that you can make way for more space and more happiness, more light in your life. But if you hold on to them all, you have no space and no room to let the light in, to let the sunshine in.
Yeah.
I wrote that book. That was the first book that I wrote. I wrote that in January of 22. And then the next month, I published a second book called Growing Faith and talked about my childhood and different things like that. I published that in February. And now I've got like some coloring books up there. And then through my private membership, I have another journal that I wrote that goes deep into journaling aspects and releasing. It's all about releasing these emotions instead of keeping them all pent up inside.
Okay. So many people.
So if you go to Amazon and you
Yeah.
type my name, Faith Sage, I have an author page that has everything up there except for my private book that I published for my private group.
Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted to know was like all of the ways that we could find out about what you're currently doing and how to be in your world to support us through those situations. My hope is to connect others to their own emotions and feelings, but also to find that in others so that we can all lift each other up and support each other. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. Faith, it's always so good to connect with you. I appreciate you taking out the time. I'm going to share your information below.
Thank you so much, Nan. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this journey of your world. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always such a joy.